I'm going to share the character journeys of The Smashing Machine, starring Dwayne Johnson, Emily Blunt, and Ryan Bader. This biopic follows Mark Kerr, who is one of the pioneers of the mixed martial arts sport. The film takes place between 1997 and the early 2000s, and we follow Mark's life from being a champion to falling from grace and then finally, ultimately accepting that it's time to pass on the baton to the next champion or the next generation to take the sport forward. Mark, in the beginning of the film, is on top of the world. He loves fighting and he loves winning. He loves being in front of 40,000 fans. There's no greater high, is what he says. And also early on, they interview him and they ask, what's it about? And he describes that when you get in a rink with another person, it's just the two of you, and you really have to lock down and control your emotions. He mentions that within a few seconds, he can tell whether or not he's going to win just by the look of the other opponent and whether or not they're scared. And then once he gets his hands on them, he knows exactly how to do it. So early on in his career, controlling his emotions is what makes him the champion. But one day he ends up losing, and that championship, that high, is gone from his life. Even though he kind of loses on a technicality, he has lost for the first time, and he falls from grace. He tries to substitute those feelings with pain medication, and he falls, and his life kind of falls apart. But through rehabilitation and a lot of work, he takes control again and he moves on and grows so that he's able to go and continue fighting. He actually has a moment where he apologizes for some of the things that he had gone through and the impact that that had on the community who are fighting in Japan. But there's this big tournament at the end, and Mark gets into the situation. He gets into the final round, and he gets stuck. He's in a fight, and he can't move. And we see a flashback of all of the things that took place throughout the film, all of the key emotional moments. And we realize, and so this is Mark's 5 second of change. He's kind of down on the mat. Uh, he can't move his body. He's stuck and he's getting pummeled by the opponent. Mark, in that moment, he realizes that this is it, that he is no longer able to control his emotions, no matter what he does with his body, no matter how strong or fit or ready he is. He has become someone who can no longer be the champion. And after that moment, he moves on and he accepts that fate, and he builds and cheers on his community as they move forward and they end up going off and becoming champions. So Mark, this is an incredible kind of character arc from being on top of the world to crashing and then coming back and accepting what's transpired. Another thing that I wanted to note is that there's another fighter named Mark Coleman who goes through his own arc, and Mark is Mark Coleman, forgive me, they're both named Mark, but Mark Coleman is another fighter. Early on in the movie, Mark Coleman is the trainer for Mark Kerr. They're really great friends. They kind of came up together in the sport. But because of Mark Kerr's situation, his crash, and his rehabilitation, that gives Mark Coleman an opportunity to shine. And so he goes from being an underdog, so to say, someone who is just a trainer in the beginning of the film, to becoming ultimately a champion. So we have these two stories kind of interweaving, and then at the end we see this smile on Mark Kerr's face. He's in the shower. He's in the shower scene, and he smiles because his friend Mark Coleman has just won the championship. And so these two friends come together, and that signifies the passing on of the baton to from one champion, Mark Kerr, over to Mark Coleman. I hope you really enjoyed this film, and you enjoyed this review, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks.